Purpose is not about you. What if the purpose of your life isn't really about you at all? Most people spend years searching for their purposes if it were a personal treasure hidden somewhere in their future. They ask questions like, what career will make me happy? What path will bring me success? What dream should I chase? These are natural questions, but according to Philip Anthony Mitchell, they may also point us in the wrong direction. Mitchell often challenges the modern idea that purpose is primarily about personal fulfillment. In a culture that constantly tells us to follow your passion and live your best life, many people assume that purpose is simply about doing what makes them feel good. But Mitchell suggests that this view is incomplete. In fact, he argues that the deeper truth about purpose is far more profound and far more demanding. Purpose, he says, is not primarily about self-expression, it is about service. This idea can feel uncomfortable at first. If purpose is not centered on us, then what exactly is it centered on? Mitchell explains that purpose is often discovered when a person begins to look beyond their own desires and starts paying attention to the needs of others. When you shift your focus from what do I want from life to what does life require from me, something powerful begins to change. Many people who feel lost in life are actually trapped in a cycle of self-focus. They constantly evaluate whether they are happy enough, successful enough, or satisfied enough. Yet the more they focus inward, the more empty they feel. Mitchell believes this happens because human beings were not designed to live only for themselves. There is something deeply fulfilling about contributing to something greater than our own comfort. Think about the moments in life that feel the most meaningful. Often they are not the moments when we receive something, but when we give something, helping someone in need, encouraging a struggling friend, creating something that benefits others. These experiences reveal an important truth. Purpose grows stronger when it moves outward. Mitchell often points out that many people misunderstand the relationship between passion and purpose. Passion is something you enjoy. Purpose is something you are responsible for. Passion can come and go depending on your mood, but purpose remains even when the excitement fades. A person may wake up some mornings without passion, but purpose still calls them to show up and continue their work. This is why purpose often feels heavier than a dream. Dreams are exciting because they promise personal reward. Purpose is different. It carries a sense of responsibility. It demands commitment even when it is difficult. Mitchell describes purpose as something that claims your life. When you truly discover it, you begin to realize that your life is not entirely your own anymore. Another important insight Mitchell shares is that purpose often becomes clear through the impact you have on other people. Sometimes the talents you take for granted are the very things others desperately need. A person who naturally encourages others might be called to leadership. Someone who understands pain deeply might be called to help people heal. Purpose frequently emerges where your gifts meet the needs of the world. However, this realization usually requires a shift in mindset. Many people ask, what do I want to do with my life? Mitchell suggests a better question. Who is my life meant to help? When you ask this question, purpose begins to take on a new shape. History is filled with examples of individuals who discovered their purpose by serving something beyond themselves. Teachers who dedicate their lives to shaping young minds, doctors who sacrifice comfort to care for the sick, leaders who commit themselves to building stronger communities. In each case, their purpose was not built around personal convenience, but around a larger calling. Mitchell also emphasizes that living for something greater than yourself brings a surprising kind of freedom. When everything in life revolves around your own happiness, you become extremely fragile. Every disappointment feels overwhelming because your entire identity is tied to personal success. But when your life is anchored in service, even setbacks can feel meaningful because they are part of a bigger mission. Of course, this perspective does not mean that personal dreams and ambitions are wrong. Mitchell is not arguing that people should ignore their desires or talents. Instead, he encourages people to place those desires within a broader context. Your abilities, your passions, and your opportunities are not random. They may be tools meant to serve a greater purpose. For example, someone who loves writing may believe their purpose is simply to become a successful author. But Mitchell would challenge them to think deeper. Who might your words help? Who might your story reach? When your talent becomes a vehicle for helping others, it transforms from a personal pursuit into a meaningful calling. Another reason people struggle to discover purpose is because they expect it to feel glamorous. In reality, purpose often begins in small, unnoticed acts of service. It might start with mentoring a single person, helping a local community, or offering support where others remain silent. Over time, these small acts can grow into something far greater. Mitchell also warns against the temptation to measure purpose through recognition. Many people assume that a meaningful calling must involve public success, influence, or visibility, but some of the most powerful purposes unfold quietly. A parent raising a child with love and wisdom, a volunteer dedicating time to those in need, a teacher changing the trajectory of a student's life. These contributions may never go viral, yet their impact can last for generations. At its core, Mitchell's message about purpose is both humbling and empowering. It is humbling because it reminds us that life is not solely about our personal ambitions, but it is empowering because it reveals that every life has the potential to matter deeply. You do not need fame, wealth, or status to live a purposeful life. You only need the willingness to serve something greater than yourself. This shift from self-centered ambition to purpose-driven service is often the first step in discovering your true calling. Once you begin to live with this mindset, you start noticing opportunities everywhere. Every relationship, every challenge, and every gift becomes part of a larger story unfolding through your life. And that realization leads to an important question. If purpose is not primarily about you, then how do you actually discover what you are called to do? That is where the journey becomes even more interesting. Because according to Philip Anthony Mitchell, the path to discovering your calling rarely begins with comfort. In fact, it often begins with pain. Calling often begins with pain. What if the greatest pain you've experienced is actually pointing you toward your life's calling? Most people spend their lives trying to avoid pain. We run from it, suppress it, distract ourselves from it, or do everything possible to forget it. Pain feels like an interruption to life, a problem to fix, or a burden to escape. But Philip Anthony Mitchell offers a radically different perspective. According to him, pain is not always the enemy. Sometimes pain is the very place where purpose begins to take shape. When people talk about calling, they often imagine a moment of clarity or inspiration, something beautiful and uplifting. They picture a sudden realization that reveals exactly what they are meant to do. But in reality, many callings do not begin in moments of comfort. They begin in moments of crisis. Mitchell often teaches that the wounds people carry in life can become the foundation for their future mission. The experiences that break your heart may be the very experiences that prepare your heart to help others. In other words, the pain you survive can become the pain you are called to heal. Think about the people who dedicate their lives to helping others overcome addiction. Many of them were once addicts themselves. Consider those who advocate for mental health awareness. Many of them have personally walked through depression or anxiety. Or look at leaders who fight for justice. Many of them were once victims of injustice. Their pain did not destroy them. Instead, it shaped them. Mitchell believes that suffering has a unique ability to reveal truths about life that comfort never could. When everything in life is easy, we rarely question our direction. We move along familiar paths without much reflection. But pain interrupts that routine. It forces us to confront deeper questions. Why did this happen? What does this mean? How should I respond? In those moments of deep questioning, something powerful begins to happen. People start to develop empathy. They gain a deeper understanding of human struggle. They learn lessons that cannot be taught in a classroom. And those lessons often become the seeds of their future calling. Pain has a way of sharpening awareness. When you have experienced loss, you become more sensitive to the pain of others. When you have faced rejection, you become more compassionate toward those who feel overlooked. When you have struggled in darkness, you recognize the value of even the smallest light. Mitchell often explains that your story, especially the painful parts, can become a bridge that connects you to others. People tend to trust those who have walked through similar struggles. Your scars can speak to someone's wounds in a way that theories and advice never could. However, this transformation does not happen automatically. Pain can either shape a person into someone stronger or trap them in bitterness. Mitchell emphasizes that the difference lies in how we respond to suffering. Some people allow pain to close their hearts. They become cynical, angry, or disconnected from others. But others choose a different path. They ask themselves, how can this experience help someone else? That question begins to transform suffering into purpose. Mitchell often describes this process as turning wounds into wisdom. The lessons learned in painful seasons can guide others who are walking through similar storms. When someone sees that you survived something difficult, it gives them hope that survival is possible for them too. Another reason pain is connected to calling is because it reveals what truly matters to us. When something deeply hurts us, it often exposes the values we care about most. A person who feels intense pain over injustice may be called to fight for fairness. Someone who suffers through loneliness may feel compelled to build communities where others feel seen and valued. Pain clarifies priorities. It strips away superficial concerns and forces us to focus on the things that truly matter in life. Through suffering, people often discover what they are willing to stand for, fight for, and dedicate their lives to. Mitchell also reminds people that the most meaningful callings usually require deep compassion, and compassion rarely develops without personal struggle. It is difficult to understand another person's pain if you have never experienced hardship yourself. This does not mean that suffering is easy or desirable. Pain can feel overwhelming, confusing, and unfair. But Mitchell encourages people not to waste their suffering. Instead of asking only, "Why did this happen to me?" he suggests asking a different question. What might this experience be preparing me for? That shift in perspective can change everything. Suddenly, pain is no longer just a tragedy to endure, it becomes a potential source of insight and strength. The difficult chapters of your story begin to carry meaning. Consider the possibility that the very challenges you wish you could erase from your life might actually contain clues about your purpose. The betrayal that taught you the value of loyalty, the failure that forced you to develop resilience, the loneliness that awakened your desire to help others feel understood. Mitchell believes that nothing in life is wasted if we allow it to shape us in the right way. Even our darkest seasons can produce something valuable. Another important point he emphasizes is that calling rarely appears fully formed. Instead, it grows gradually through life experiences. Pain might be the spark that begins the process, but the full meaning of that pain often becomes clear only with time. At first, suffering may feel like chaos, but years later, you may look back and realize that the struggle prepared you for something important. The strength you developed in difficult moments becomes the strength someone else needs from you. This idea can also bring comfort during seasons when life feels especially hard. If pain has the potential to shape purpose, then suffering is not meaningless. Even when the path ahead seems unclear, something meaningful may still be unfolding. Mitchell's message does not glorify suffering, but it does challenge the idea that pain is purely negative. Sometimes pain is a teacher, sometimes it is a guide, and sometimes it is the beginning of a calling that will eventually help many others. Of course, recognizing this connection requires patience. People rarely understand the purpose behind their pain immediately. Healing takes time. Growth takes time. But if a person remains open to learning from their experiences, those experiences can eventually become a source of strength and direction. In many ways, the pain you carry can become the foundation of the compassion you offer the world. And when you begin to see your story not just as something that happened to you, but as something that might help others, your perspective begins to shift. You move from simply surviving your past to using it. And that leads to the next important step in discovering purpose. Because even when pain begins to point you toward your calling, there is still another challenge many people face. They wait for perfect clarity before taking action. But according to Philip Anthony Mitchell, clarity rarely comes before the first step. It usually comes after. Clarity comes through action. What if the reason you still don't know your calling is because you were waiting too long to start? One of the biggest misconceptions people have about purpose is the belief that clarity must come before action. Many individuals delay pursuing their calling because they are waiting for certainty. They want a clear plan, a guaranteed outcome, and a perfectly defined direction before they take the first step. But Philip Anthony Mitchell teaches that this expectation often keeps people stuck for years. According to Mitchell, clarity rarely appears at the beginning of the journey. Instead, clarity is something that grows through movement. It emerges through experience, experimentation, and obedience to small opportunities that appear along the way. In other words, you don't discover your calling by standing still and thinking about it. You discover it by stepping forward into the unknown. This idea challenges the mindset many people develop early in life. From a young age, society encourages us to figure everything out before making a decision. Students are asked to choose careers before they truly understand themselves. Professionals feel pressure to map out 5-year plans for a future that is constantly changing. And in the midst of all this pressure, people begin to believe that they must have complete clarity before taking action. Mitchell argues that this belief is both unrealistic and harmful. Life rarely unfolds according to a perfectly organized plan. Many of the most meaningful opportunities appear unexpectedly. If a person refuses to move forward until everything makes sense, they may miss the very experiences that would have revealed their path. Think about how most people develop skills or passions in the first place. Very few individuals begin with a fully formed vision of their purpose. Instead, they try different things. They explore new ideas, meet new people, and respond to opportunities as they arise. Over time, patterns begin to appear. Clarity grows through involvement. Mitchell often emphasizes that purpose is not simply discovered through reflection, it is discovered through participation. When you engage with the world around you, you begin to notice where your gifts naturally create value. You see where your efforts make a difference. You learn what energizes you and what drains you. These insights cannot be gained through theory alone. They require real-world experience. Another reason action is so important is that it exposes your assumptions. Many people hold strong beliefs about what they think their purpose should be, but those beliefs may not always align with reality. Sometimes a person imagines themselves in a particular role only to discover that it does not truly fit who they are. Without action, these misunderstandings remain hidden. Mitchell encourages people to treat the early stages of purpose as a process of exploration. Instead of asking, "What is my one perfect calling?" it can be more helpful to ask, "What is the next step I can take that serves others and uses my gifts?" This approach removes the pressure of needing to figure out everything immediately. Small steps create momentum. When a person begins to move forward even in imperfect ways, they start to gain feedback from the world around them. That feedback becomes valuable information. It reveals strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities for growth. Over time, the path becomes clearer not because it was obvious from the beginning, but because consistent action revealed it gradually. Mitchell often points out that fear is one of the main reasons people hesitate to take action. Fear of failure, fear of criticism, and fear of making the wrong decision can paralyze even the most talented individuals. People imagine worst-case scenarios and convince themselves that waiting is safer than trying. But in reality, waiting often carries its own risks. Years can pass while someone waits for the perfect moment, the perfect idea, or the perfect opportunity. Meanwhile, life continues moving forward. Opportunities come and go, and the potential impact of their gifts remains unrealized. Mitchell reminds people that failure is not the opposite of purpose. It is often part of the process that leads to it. Mistakes teach lessons that success alone cannot provide. Each failed attempt contains information that helps refine the next step. Many individuals who eventually achieve great impact experience multiple false starts along the way. Their early attempts may have looked messy or uncertain, but those experiences shaped their understanding and prepared them for future opportunities. Another important insight Mitchell shares is that purpose rarely reveals itself all at once. Instead, it unfolds step by step. The first step may seem small or insignificant, but it opens the door to the next step. And the next step leads to new connections, new insights, and new possibilities. This gradual unfolding requires trust. A person must be willing to move forward even when the full picture is not visible yet. Mitchell often compares this process to walking through a dark path with a flashlight. The light does not illuminate the entire road ahead, it only shows the next few steps. But as you continue walking, the light continues revealing more of the path. If you refuse to take those first steps, the path remains hidden. This principle also applies to personal growth. When people begin acting on their potential, they often discover abilities they did not realize they had. Confidence grows through experience. Skills develop through practice. What once seemed impossible gradually becomes achievable. Action transforms uncertainty into understanding. Mitchell also emphasizes that taking action does not require grand gestures. Many people imagine purpose as something dramatic or world-changing, but most callings begin with small acts of service. Offering help where it is needed, sharing knowledge with someone who can benefit from it, creating something that improves another person's life. These actions may appear simple, but they often reveal deeper possibilities. A small opportunity can grow into a lifelong mission if a person remains open to where it leads. At the same time, Mitchell encourages people to remain flexible. The path to purpose is rarely straight. Circumstances change, interests evolve, and new opportunities emerge. Clinging too tightly to a rigid plan can prevent a person from recognizing better directions that appear later. Purpose is not a fixed destination, it is a living journey. As you take action, you begin to learn more about yourself. You discover the environments where you thrive, the problems you feel compelled to solve, and the kinds of people you are drawn to help. These discoveries gradually shape the direction of your calling. Over time, the combination of your experiences, skills, values, and relationships begins to form a unique pattern. That pattern is often the clearest indicator of your purpose. Mitchell believes that many people underestimate how much progress can happen when they simply start moving. Waiting for perfect clarity keeps potential locked inside the mind. But action brings that potential into the real world where it can grow and evolve. And as a person continues to take steps learning, adapting, and serving others, their calling becomes less mysterious and more visible. Eventually, what once felt confusing begins to make sense. But there is another challenge that appears once people start moving toward their purpose. Because action does not only reveal clarity, it also reveals resistance. And according to Philip Anthony Mitchell, the closer you move toward your calling, the more resistance you may encounter. Purpose requires discipline. What if the difference between people who discover their calling and those who never do is not talent but discipline? Many people talk about purpose as if it were purely emotional. They imagine that living a meaningful life depends on finding something that excites them every day. In this view, purpose feels like a constant wave of inspiration, passion, and motivation. But Philip Anthony Mitchell challenges this romantic idea. According to Mitchell, purpose is not sustained by passion alone. Passion may ignite the beginning of a journey, but discipline is what carries it forward. Without discipline, even the strongest sense of calling can slowly fade under the pressures of everyday life. This is an uncomfortable truth for many people. Discipline rarely feels glamorous. It requires consistency, patience, and effort even when enthusiasm disappears. Yet Mitchell insists that discipline is one of the most important qualities required to live out your purpose. To understand why discipline matters so much, it helps to recognize that purpose almost always demands sacrifice. When someone commits to a meaningful calling, they inevitably face obstacles, long hours of work, repeated failures, criticism from others, and seasons where progress seems painfully slow. Without discipline, these challenges can easily derail a person's commitment. Many people start pursuing their calling with excitement, but when difficulties appear, their motivation begins to weaken. They may begin to question their path or abandon it altogether. Mitchell believes that this pattern explains why so many dreams remain unfinished. The initial inspiration was real, but the discipline required to sustain the journey was missing. Discipline acts as the bridge between vision and reality. When a person understands their purpose, they must still develop the daily habits that bring that purpose to life. A writer may feel called to share ideas with the world, but without the discipline to write regularly, those ideas remain trapped in their mind. A leader may feel called to influence people positively, but without disciplined effort to grow and serve others, that influence never materializes. Purpose demands consistent action over time. Mitchell often reminds people that discipline is not simply about working harder, it is about working with intention. Discipline means aligning your daily choices with the mission you believe you are called to pursue. It means making decisions that move your life in the direction of your purpose, even when easier alternatives exist. For example, imagine someone who believes they are called to help others through teaching. Discipline for that person might involve studying regularly, improving communication skills, preparing lessons carefully, and continually learning from feedback. None of these activities may feel exciting every day, but they are essential steps in fulfilling the calling. Discipline transforms potential into impact. Another reason discipline is so important is because purpose often unfolds slowly. Many meaningful achievements require years of effort before their results become visible. During those long stretches of time, motivation naturally fluctuates. Some days feel productive and rewarding, while others feel frustrating or discouraging. Mitchell emphasizes that discipline provides stability during these emotional ups and downs. Instead of relying on temporary feelings, disciplined individuals rely on commitment. They show up for their purpose whether they feel inspired or not. This consistency creates momentum. Over time, small disciplined actions accumulate into significant progress. A person who writes a little every day eventually produces a book. A person who practices a skill consistently eventually masters it. A person who invests daily in relationships eventually builds a strong community. Purpose grows through repetition. Mitchell also warns that without discipline, distractions can easily steal attention away from meaningful work. Modern life is filled with endless sources of entertainment, information, and comparison. Social media, digital platforms, and constant notifications compete for attention every moment of the day. In such an environment, it becomes extremely easy to lose focus. Discipline helps people protect their time and energy from distractions that do not align with their calling. It allows them to prioritize what truly matters instead of reacting to every new stimulus around them. In this sense, discipline is not only about effort, it is also about focus. Focus determines where energy is invested. Mitchell often encourages people to examine how they spend their time. If a person claims to care deeply about their purpose, but spends most of their day on activities unrelated to it. There is a clear disconnect. Discipline helps close that gap by aligning daily behavior with long-term intentions. Another important aspect of discipline is resilience. Pursuing purpose inevitably involves setbacks. Plans fail, opportunities disappear, and criticism can be discouraging. In those moments, disciplined individuals continue moving forward even when circumstances become difficult. Resilience is discipline in action. Mitchell believes that the most impactful individuals are not necessarily the most talented or the most intelligent. Instead, they are often the ones who refuse to quit when progress felt slow. Their discipline allowed them to endure challenges long enough to see meaningful results. This perspective shifts how we think about success. Instead of asking whether someone has extraordinary abilities, it may be more useful to ask whether they have developed extraordinary consistency. Discipline also strengthens character. When a person commits to disciplined habits, they begin to develop qualities such as patience, perseverance, and responsibility. These qualities shape not only their work but also their identity. Over time, disciplined behavior becomes part of who they are. Mitchell frequently emphasizes that purpose is not only about what you accomplish, it is also about who you become. The process of pursuing a calling transforms a person internally. Through discipline, individuals learn to manage their emotions, stay focused on long-term goals, and remain committed even when results are uncertain. These internal changes often become just as important as external achievements. Another reason discipline matters is that purpose often involves serving others. When people depend on you, whether as a leader, teacher, mentor, or creator, your consistency affects their lives. Discipline ensures that you continue showing up for those who rely on your contribution. In this way, discipline becomes an expression of responsibility. It reflects a commitment not only to your own growth, but also to the people who may benefit from your work. Mitchell encourages individuals to view discipline not as a burden, but as a form of stewardship. Your talents, opportunities, and experiences are resources entrusted to you, and discipline is the way you use those resources wisely. Of course, building discipline does not happen overnight. It develops gradually through repeated choices. Each time a person chooses progress over comfort, focus over distraction, and commitment over convenience, they strengthen the habits that support their purpose. Eventually, discipline becomes a powerful foundation. With discipline, purpose gains direction and stability. Without discipline, even the most meaningful calling can remain unrealized. But Mitchell also reminds people that discipline alone is not enough. A person may work extremely hard yet still feel lost if they constantly compare themselves to others. Comparison introduces another obstacle on the journey toward purpose. Because when you begin measuring your progress against someone else's path, it becomes easy to forget that your calling was never meant to look exactly like theirs. Comparison kills calling. What if the fastest way to lose your purpose is by constantly comparing your life to someone else? In the modern world, comparison has become almost unavoidable. Every day, people scroll through images of success, talent, wealth, and recognition displayed across digital platforms. Social media feeds are filled with highlights of other people's lives, career achievements, personal milestones, and moments of apparent happiness. At first glance, these images may seem harmless or even inspiring. But according to Philip Anthony Mitchell, constant comparison can quietly destroy a person's sense of calling. Mitchell often emphasizes that one of the greatest threats to purpose is the temptation to measure your life against someone else's journey. When people fall into this habit, they begin to evaluate their progress, their achievements, and even their worth based on what others appear to be accomplishing. Over time, this mindset can create deep frustration. You may start asking questions like, why am I not as successful as them? Why does their life seem clearer than mine? Why am I moving so slowly compared to everyone else? These questions may seem natural, but they can gradually erode confidence and focus. The problem with comparison is that it shifts your attention away from your own path. Purpose is deeply personal. Each individual's calling is shaped by a unique combination of experiences, abilities, relationships, and circumstances. No two lives follow the exact same pattern. Yet when people compare themselves to others, they begin expecting their journey to look similar to someone else. S. Mitchell warns that this expectation creates unnecessary pressure. Imagine planting different types of seeds in a garden. Some seeds grow into trees that take years to mature. Others grow into flowers that bloom within weeks. If you judged every plant by the speed at which the fastest one grows, you might assume that the slower plants are failing. But in reality, they simply have a different nature and timeline. Human lives work in a similar way. Each person carries different gifts and different responsibilities. Some individuals may achieve visible success early in life, while others develop their impact gradually over many years. Comparing these journeys is like comparing completely different species of plants. Mitchell often reminds people that comparison distorts reality. When you observe someone else's life from the outside, you rarely see the full story. You see the results of their work, but not the hidden struggles that shape them. You see moments of celebration, but not the long periods of effort, failure, and uncertainty that preceded those moments. In other words, comparison is usually based on incomplete information. Because of this, it can create unrealistic expectations. You may believe someone else's path was smooth and straightforward, when in reality it was filled with challenges similar to your own. Without understanding their entire story, it becomes impossible to fairly measure your progress against theirs. Another danger of comparison is that it can lead to imitation instead of authenticity. When people become overly focused on what others are doing, they may start copying those paths in an attempt to achieve similar results. They choose careers, projects, or lifestyles not because those choices align with their calling, but because those choices appear successful for someone else. This imitation can slowly disconnect people from their true purpose. Mitchell explains that calling requires authenticity. Your purpose emerges from your own experiences, values, and abilities. When you attempt to replicate someone else's journey, you risk abandoning the unique contribution you were meant to make. It is important to remember that a path that works perfectly for one person may not work at all for another. Comparison can also produce two opposite emotional responses, envy and pride. Both are dangerous in different ways. When someone compares themselves to people who seem more successful, they may feel envy or discouragement. This can lead to self-doubt and the belief that their own efforts are insignificant. Over time, this discouragement can reduce motivation and make people question whether their calling is worth pursuing. On the other hand, comparison can sometimes produce pride. When someone compares themselves to people who appear less successful, they may begin to feel superior. This sense of superiority can create arrogance and complacency. Neither envy nor pride leads to healthy growth. Mitchell encourages people to replace comparison with reflection. Instead of measuring your progress against others, measure it against your own growth. Ask questions such as, am I learning? Am I improving? Am I becoming more capable of serving others than I was yesterday? This perspective shifts attention back to personal development. Progress becomes a personal journey rather than a competition. The focus moves from outperforming others to becoming the best version of yourself. This mindset creates a healthier relationship with both success and failure. Mitchell also reminds people that purpose often unfolds at different speeds. Some opportunities require years of preparation before they appear. Skills must develop, character must mature, and relationships must form before certain doors can open. If you constantly compare your timeline to someone else, you may become impatient and attempt to rush the process. But rushing can lead to poor decisions. A person who feels pressure to catch up may pursue opportunities that are not aligned with their calling. They may chase recognition or financial reward without considering whether those goals truly match their deeper purpose. Mitchell emphasizes that patience is an essential part of discovering and fulfilling your calling. Growth takes time, and each stage of life provides lessons that prepare you for the next stage. Another powerful way to overcome comparison is by recognizing the value of collaboration. When people stop competing with one another, they begin to see how their different gifts can complement each other. Instead of asking, how can I be better than them? The question becomes, how can we work together to create something meaningful? This shift transforms relationships. What once felt like competition becomes partnership. People begin to appreciate the strengths of others without feeling threatened by them. In this environment, purpose can flourish because individuals feel free to pursue their own paths without constantly measuring themselves against someone else's achievements. Mitchell often summarizes this idea with a simple principle. You cannot run your race while watching someone else's lane. When athletes compete in a race, they must focus on their own lane to perform well. If they constantly turn their heads to observe other runners, they lose speed and balance. The same principle applies to life. Your calling requires attention, commitment, and focus. If you constantly divert that focus towards someone else's progress, you weaken your own momentum. The energy that could be used to build your purpose becomes wasted on unnecessary comparison. Learning to celebrate other people's success without comparing it to your own is an important step toward maturity. When you appreciate the achievements of others while remaining confident in your own path, you create space for genuine growth. Mitchell encourages people to remember that purpose is not a competition, it is a contribution. The world does not need millions of identical paths. It needs diverse individuals using their unique gift to serve others in different ways. When you stop comparing yourself to others, you begin to see your own path more clearly. And as that clarity grows, another important question begins to emerge. If comparison hides your calling, then how do you recognize the unique direction your life is meant to take? According to Philip Anthony Mitchell, the answer often lies closer than you think. In fact, the clues to your calling may already exist within the gifts you naturally carry. Your gifts are clues to your calling. What if the clues to your life's calling are already inside you, but you've been overlooking them your entire life? Many people imagine their calling as something mysterious that will appear suddenly from outside their lives. They wait for a dramatic moment, a clear sign, or a life-changing opportunity that reveals exactly what they were meant to do. Because of this expectation, they often overlook something far more obvious. According to Philip Anthony Mitchell, one of the clearest indicators of your calling is already present within you: your gifts. Mitchell frequently explains that purpose and ability are rarely disconnected. In many cases, the talents you possess are not random accidents. They are clues, signals pointing toward the kind of impact you might be capable of making in the world. However, recognizing these clues requires a shift in perspective. The problem is that people often underestimate their own gifts. Skills that come naturally to us can feel ordinary or insignificant. Because we perform them with ease, we assume they must be easy for everyone else as well. But this assumption is rarely true. What feels natural to you may be incredibly valuable to someone else. For example, some people have an intuitive ability to explain complex ideas in simple ways. They might not see this ability as extraordinary because it comes easily to them. Yet that same skill could make them an exceptional teacher, communicator, or mentor. Others possess a natural sense of empathy. They can listen deeply, understand emotions, and offer encouragement that genuinely helps people feel supported. To them, this may feel like simple kindness, but in reality, it may be the foundation for a powerful calling in counseling, leadership, or community building. Mitchell emphasizes that gifts are not limited to traditional talents like music, art, or athletics. Gifts can appear in many forms. Some people have the ability to organize chaos and bring structure to complicated situations. Others excel at motivating people, solving problems, or building relationships. Each of these abilities can become a channel for purpose. Another important point Mitchell highlights is that gifts are often revealed through patterns in your life. If you look closely at your experiences, you may notice certain abilities appearing repeatedly in different situations. Perhaps people consistently come to you for advice when they face difficult decisions. Maybe you often find yourself leading projects even when you did not initially intend to take charge. Or perhaps you notice that you feel energized when creating something, writing, designing, building, or developing ideas. These patterns are not random. They are signals that your natural abilities are being recognized by others and expressed through your actions. When you pay attention to these recurring patterns, you begin to understand where your strengths lie. Mitchell encourages people to reflect on the activities that make them feel both effective and energized. Some tasks drain your energy quickly, while others seem to activate something deeper within you. Even when those tasks are challenging, they leave you feeling fulfilled rather than exhausted. This combination of challenge and fulfillment often reveals an area where your gifts are active. But recognizing gifts is only the first step. Gifts alone do not automatically create purpose. A gift becomes meaningful when it is used in service to others. Mitchell often explains that talents are tools, and tools are meant to be used. A gift that remains hidden or unused cannot create impact. Many people possess incredible abilities but hesitate to develop them because of fear, insecurity, or uncertainty. Sometimes people doubt whether their abilities are valuable enough. They compare themselves to experts or professionals and conclude that their contribution would not matter. But Mitchell challenges this thinking. Every skill begins in a small form. Even the most influential leaders, artists, teachers, and creators once started with imperfect abilities. Their gifts became powerful only after years of practice, learning, and refinement. What began as a natural inclination gradually developed into mastery. This development requires intentional effort. Mitchell reminds people that discovering your gifts is not the same as fully understanding them. Many abilities reveal their true potential only after you invest time in developing them. When you nurture your gifts through practice and education, they grow stronger and more effective. Another important way to identify your gifts is through feedback from others. Sometimes the people around you notice strengths that you cannot easily see yourself. They may compliment abilities you rarely think about or express gratitude for ways you have helped them. Instead of dismissing these observations, Mitchell suggests listening carefully. When multiple people consistently recognize the same strengths in you, it may be a strong indicator that those abilities are significant. These external perspectives can provide valuable insight into how your gifts affect others. However, Mitchell also warns against confusing gifts with temporary trends or external validation. Not every popular skill aligns with your true calling. Some abilities may attract attention or financial reward, but still feel disconnected from your deeper purpose. The key question is not simply what am I good at, but also how can this ability genuinely serve others? Purpose emerges when your gifts intersect with the needs of the world around you. For instance, someone with strong communication skills could use that gift in many different ways: marketing, teaching, storytelling, leadership, or advocacy. The specific direction their calling takes may depend on the problems they feel most compelled to address. Mitchell believes that purpose often becomes clearer when a person asks how their abilities can contribute to solving real challenges in the lives of others. Instead of focusing only on personal success, they begin thinking about impact. Impact transforms talent into calling. Another reason gifts are important is that they create opportunities. When you consistently develop and apply your strengths, people begin to notice. New relationships form, new doors open, and new responsibilities appear. These opportunities often guide individuals toward environments where their calling can expand. In this way, gifts function like signposts along the journey of purpose. But Mitchell also reminds people that gifts must be balanced with character. Talent without integrity can create influence that harms rather than helps. A person who develops extraordinary abilities must also cultivate humility, wisdom, and responsibility. True calling requires both competence and character. When gifts are guided by strong values, they become powerful instruments for positive change. They allow individuals to contribute in ways that are both effective and meaningful. Mitchell often encourages people to imagine their gifts as seeds. Each seed contains potential, but potential alone does not produce fruit. Seeds must be planted, nurtured, and given time to grow. Through patience and care, what once seemed small can eventually produce something remarkable. Your gifts carry that same potential. The abilities that feel ordinary to you today may become the very tools that shape your calling tomorrow. But recognizing and developing those abilities requires attention, curiosity, and courage. You must be willing to explore what you are capable of becoming. And when you begin to understand your gifts more clearly, another important realization emerges. Because gifts may point you toward your calling, but they do not eliminate the obstacles that appear along the way. In fact, according to Philip Anthony Mitchell, the moment you begin using your gifts with purpose, resistance often becomes stronger than ever before. The discipline of obedience, staying faithful when it gets hard. What if the greatest obstacle to your purpose isn't confusion but comfort? Many people believe discovering purpose is the hardest part of the journey. But according to Philip Anthony Mitchell, discovering purpose is only the beginning. The real test comes afterward, when life becomes uncomfortable, inconvenient, and unpredictable. Purpose demands obedience, and obedience often requires sacrifice. Mitchell often teaches that purpose is not simply about what you love doing. If purpose were only about passion, everyone would easily fulfill their calling. Instead, purpose is about alignment with something greater than your preferences, emotions, or temporary desires. There will be moments when your purpose asks you to do things you do not feel ready for. There will be seasons when the work feels heavy, when results seem invisible, and when the path forward looks uncertain. This is where discipline enters the picture. Discipline is the quiet commitment to keep moving forward, even when motivation disappears. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is intentional. Mitchell emphasizes that many people abandon their calling not because it was wrong, but because it became difficult. At the beginning of any purpose-driven journey, excitement fuels progress. You feel inspired, ideas flow, opportunities appear, encouragement surrounds you, everything feels aligned. But eventually the emotional high fades, doubts start to appear, progress slows, criticism may increase. The work becomes repetitive and demanding. In these moments, many people start asking the wrong question. Instead of asking, am I being faithful? They ask, is this still worth it? Purpose was never meant to be easy. Mitchell reminds people that obedience is often proven in the quiet seasons, the seasons where no one is watching, where recognition is absent, and where the only thing guiding you forward is conviction. Faithfulness in small things becomes the foundation for greater responsibility. Many people want influence, visibility, and impact, but very few people are willing to endure the hidden work required to build those things. Purpose requires consistency, showing up when you're retired, showing up when the audience is small, showing up when the results are slow. This consistency is what separates temporary enthusiasm from lasting calling. Mitchell often highlights that obedience is not glamorous. It doesn't always produce immediate rewards. In fact, obedience sometimes feels like walking in the dark. You may not see the full picture. You may not understand why certain doors close or why certain delays happen. But obedience means trusting the process even when clarity is incomplete. Another challenge in pursuing purpose is comparison. In the digital age, it is easy to look at others and feel like you are behind. Social media constantly displays curated success stories, people achieving milestones, launching projects, and celebrating accomplishments. But Mitchell warns that comparison is one of the fastest ways to derail your purpose. Purpose is personal. Your timeline will not look like someone else's timeline. Your path will not follow someone else's strategy. What appears to be slow progress may actually be necessary preparation. Obedience requires patience. Some seasons of life are planting seasons. In those seasons, you are investing time, effort, and energy without visible results. Just like a farmer cannot rush the growth of crops, purpose cannot be forced to mature faster than its natural process. The discipline of obedience means continuing the work even when results are delayed. Mitchell often uses the idea that purpose shapes character before it produces influence. Character is the internal strength that allows someone to carry responsibility without being destroyed by it. Without character, success can become dangerous. Fame without character leads to arrogance. Power without character leads to abuse. Influence without character leads to manipulation. That is why many purpose-driven journeys include long seasons of preparation. These seasons refine patience, humility, resilience, and wisdom. While the outside world may see these seasons as slow or unproductive, they are actually building the internal foundation needed for the future. Mitchell reminds people that calling is not just about what you do, it is about who you become while doing it. Purpose transforms the person pursuing it. You begin to think differently. You begin to value different things. You become less focused on recognition and more focused on impact. Another important element of obedience is learning to endure misunderstanding. When someone begins to pursue a meaningful calling, not everyone will understand their decisions. Some people may question your choices. Others may criticize your direction. This is especially true if your purpose requires stepping outside of conventional expectations. Mitchell teaches that purpose sometimes requires courage to walk alone. Not everyone will support your vision in the beginning. Some people only support results, not the process. This is why clarity about your calling must be internal, not dependent on external approval. If your sense of purpose depends on validation, it will collapse when criticism appears. Obedience means staying faithful to what you know you are called to do even when others doubt it. However, obedience is not about stubbornness. Mitchell also emphasizes the importance of humility and teachability. Purposeful people must remain open to growth. They seek wisdom from mentors. They accept constructive feedback. They continuously refine their skills. Obedience does not mean refusing correction. Instead, it means staying committed to the mission while remaining flexible in the methods. Sometimes the path toward purpose requires adjustment. New information appears, new opportunities emerge, new challenges arise. Those who succeed are those who adapt without abandoning the deeper calling guiding them. Mitchell also speaks about endurance. Endurance is the ability to continue when everything in you wants to stop. There will be days when exhaustion appears stronger than inspiration. There will be moments when the dream feels distant. But endurance is built one step at a time. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you strengthen the internal muscles needed to sustain purpose long term. Purpose is not a sprint, it is a lifelong journey. The most impactful lives are rarely the result of sudden breakthroughs. Instead, they are the result of decades of faithful work. Mitchell often reminds people that greatness is usually quiet. It happens in daily routines. It happens in unseen preparation. It happens in consistent obedience. Eventually, the accumulation of small acts of faithfulness begins to create momentum. Doors begin to open. Influence begins to expand. Impact begins to multiply. But by the time these things appear, the person has already been shaped by the process. The discipline of obedience is what allows purpose to survive long enough to produce fruit. Without obedience, purpose remains only an idea. With obedience, purpose becomes a life mission. And that mission begins to shape not only your life, but the lives of others as well. When pain becomes preparation, how adversity shapes your calling. What if the most painful seasons of your life were not meant to break you, but to prepare you for your purpose? One of the most profound ideas that Philip Anthony Mitchell often shares is that purpose is rarely born in comfort. In fact, many of the people who walk most clearly in their calling did not discover it during easy seasons of life. Instead, their purpose was forged in difficulty. Pain, disappointment, loss, rejection, these experiences often feel like obstacles. But Mitchell suggests something deeper. Adversity can become preparation. Most people instinctively try to escape pain. When hardship appears, the natural response is to ask, why is this happening to me? But purpose-driven thinking asks a different question. What is this preparing me for? This shift in perspective changes everything. Mitchell often teaches that some lessons cannot be learned through comfort. Wisdom, resilience, empathy, and strength are often developed in the very seasons people wish they could avoid. Think about it. A person who has never experienced failure may struggle to lead others through disappointment. Someone who has never faced hardship may not understand the struggles of those they are meant to help. Pain develops depth. When people experience difficult seasons, they gain insight into human struggle. They develop compassion. They become capable of guiding others through situations they themselves have survived. This is why many callings are connected to past wounds. Someone who grew up in poverty may feel a deep calling to help disadvantaged communities. A person who overcame addiction may feel compelled to help others break free from destructive cycles. Someone who experienced injustice may dedicate their life to creating fairness and opportunity. In many cases, the pain becomes the training ground. Mitchell emphasizes that adversity reveals character. When life becomes difficult, hidden parts of our identity begin to surface. Fear appears, doubt becomes louder, insecurity becomes visible. But this process also reveals strength. Challenges force people to confront their limitations and develop new capabilities. They learn patience. They learn perseverance. They learn to operate even when circumstances feel uncertain. This internal transformation is often necessary before someone can fully walk in their purpose. Imagine a leader who has never experienced personal struggle trying to guide others through crisis. Without emotional depth, their leadership may lack credibility. But someone who has walked through hardship carries a different kind of authority. Their words are not theoretical, they are experiential. Mitchell often reminds people that pain can become perspective. Perspective changes how you interpret the world. It helps you see beyond surface-level problems and understand deeper human needs. This insight often becomes the foundation for meaningful impact. However, adversity alone does not automatically produce purpose. Some people experience pain and become bitter. Others experience pain and become wiser. The difference lies in how the experience is processed. Mitchell encourages people not to waste their pain. Instead of allowing hardship to create resentment, it can be transformed into motivation. The very experiences that once caused suffering can become the fuel that drives meaningful action. This transformation requires reflection. When difficult seasons occur, it is important to ask reflective questions. What did this experience teach me about life? What strengths did I develop during this season? What struggles can I now understand that I could not understand before? These questions help convert painful experiences into valuable insight. Another important concept Mitchell discusses is resilience. Resilience is the ability to recover and continue moving forward after setbacks. Purpose-driven individuals often develop strong resilience because their motivation is deeper than temporary circumstances. When someone is driven only by comfort or success, adversity can easily derail them. But when someone is driven by purpose, they find ways to adapt and continue. Purpose creates endurance. Mitchell often shares that adversity tests commitment. Difficult seasons force people to decide whether their calling is truly important to them. Many people abandon dreams when obstacles appear, but those who remain committed during hardship often discover that their calling becomes clearer through the struggle. Challenges refine motivation. Sometimes people begin pursuing something for the wrong reasons: status, recognition, or financial success. When adversity removes those external rewards, only genuine purpose remains. In this way, hardship filters out superficial motivations and strengthens authentic ones. Another powerful idea Mitchell teaches is that wounds can become bridges. The struggles you have experienced often become the very connection point between you and the people you are meant to serve. People trust those who understand them. If someone has never experienced your struggle, their advice may feel distant. But when someone speaks from lived experience, their words carry credibility. This is why many influential leaders, mentors, and creators speak openly about their past difficulties. Their stories create relatability. Mitchell encourages people not to hide their past struggles, but to reinterpret them. Instead of seeing them as shameful failures, they can be understood as formative chapters of a larger story. Every meaningful story contains conflict. If life were always easy, growth would rarely occur. Conflict forces characters to evolve. The same principle applies to real life. Purpose often emerges through the process of overcoming challenges. However, Mitchell also emphasizes that pain should not be romanticized. Suffering itself is not the goal. Instead, the goal is transformation. The key question becomes, will this experience make me stronger or more cynical? Growth requires intentional response. This means developing healthy coping mechanisms, reflection, community learning, and sometimes seeking guidance from mentors or counselors. No one fulfills purpose completely alone. Another dimension of adversity is humility. Difficult seasons remind people that they are not in control of everything. This humility creates openness to learning and collaboration. People who have experienced struggle often become more compassionate leaders. They listen more carefully. They judge less quickly. They understand complexity. These qualities are essential for anyone who hopes to create meaningful impact. Mitchell often highlights that adversity also develops courage. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is the willingness to act despite fear. When someone repeatedly faces challenges and continues forward, their capacity for courage expands. This courage becomes essential when purpose requires bold decisions. Every calling eventually requires risk. There are moments when stepping forward means leaving familiarity behind. Without courage, purpose remains theoretical. With courage, purpose becomes action. Mitchell also encourages people to recognize patterns within their life experiences. Sometimes the struggles that appear random actually reveal consistent themes. Perhaps you repeatedly feel drawn toward helping a certain group of people. Perhaps your experiences repeatedly expose you to the same social issue or challenge. These patterns can provide clues about purpose. Purpose is often hidden within the intersection of personal experience, developed skills, and deep compassion. Adversity contributes significantly to that intersection. In hindsight, many people realize that the experiences they once wished to avoid were actually shaping their future contributions. The rejection that forced them to develop resilience, the loss that deepened their empathy, the failure that taught them humility. These experiences became preparation. Mitchell often reminds people that purpose does not erase pain, but it gives pain meaning. When hardship becomes connected to a larger mission, it stops feeling random. Instead, it becomes part of a story that ultimately benefits others. Your scars can become signals of survival. They remind you that you endured. They remind others that endurance is possible. This is one of the most powerful aspects of purpose. It transforms personal history into collective hope. The very experiences that once felt like obstacles can become tools that help others navigate their own challenges. And when that transformation happens, pain loses its power to define you. Instead, it becomes part of the foundation upon which your calling is built. The power of community. Why purpose cannot thrive in isolation. What if the reason many people struggle to fulfill their purpose is not a lack of talent, but a lack of the right people around them? Philip Anthony Mitchell often emphasizes a truth that many modern cultures tend to ignore. Purpose is rarely fulfilled alone. While the journey of discovering one's calling can feel deeply personal, the process of living it out almost always involves community. Human beings are relational by nature. No meaningful mission grows in isolation. Behind every impactful life, there is often a network of mentors, friends, supporters, collaborators, and even challengers who helped shape the path. Mitchell teaches that purpose flourishes in the presence of the right relationships. Many people imagine purpose as a solitary pursuit, an individual discovering their calling and single-handedly changing the world. But reality looks different. Even the most visionary individuals are strengthened, refined, and sustained by others. Community provides perspective. When people pursue purpose alone, they can easily fall into two extremes: self-doubt or self-deception. Without outside voices, a person may either underestimate their abilities or overestimate their direction. Healthy relationships provide balance. Trusted mentors can offer guidance based on experience. Honest friends can provide encouragement during difficult seasons. Wise advisors can challenge assumptions and help refine decisions. Mitchell frequently reminds people that no one sees themselves with perfect clarity. There are strengths we overlook and weaknesses we fail to recognize. The right community helps reveal both. Mentorship in particular plays a crucial role in the development of purpose. A mentor is someone who has already traveled part of the path you are beginning. They have encountered challenges, made mistakes, and gained wisdom through experience. By learning from their insights, you can avoid unnecessary setbacks and accelerate growth. Mitchell often encourages people to actively seek mentors. However, mentorship is not simply about asking someone to guide your life. It requires humility and teachability. Many people desire mentorship, but few are willing to receive correction or constructive feedback. True mentorship involves accountability. A mentor not only encourages your strengths, but also confronts your blind spots. They challenge complacency and push you toward growth. This process can sometimes feel uncomfortable, but growth rarely occurs within comfort zones. Community also provides emotional support. Pursuing purpose often includes seasons of uncertainty and fatigue. There are moments when progress feels slow and obstacles appear overwhelming. During these times, supportive relationships can make the difference between persistence and surrender. Encouragement strengthens resilience. Sometimes a simple reminder from a friend, someone who believes in your mission, can restore the energy needed to continue. Mitchell also highlights the importance of collaboration. Many purposes are too large for one person to accomplish alone. A vision often requires teams. Think about any significant project, whether it is building a business, launching a social movement, producing creative work, or serving a community. Behind these achievements are groups of people working together. Each person contributes different skills, perspectives, and strengths. Some individuals are visionary thinkers, others excel at strategy and organization. Some bring creativity while others bring practical execution. Purpose thrives when diverse talents unite around a shared mission. Mitchell teaches that humility is essential for collaboration. People must recognize that they cannot do everything themselves. Trying to control every aspect of a mission can lead to exhaustion and limited growth. When individuals learn to trust others and delegate responsibilities, the mission becomes stronger. However, not every relationship supports purpose. Mitchell also warns about the influence of negative environments. The people surrounding you significantly shape your mindset and behavior. If someone constantly receives discouragement, criticism, or skepticism, it becomes much harder to maintain confidence in their calling. This does not mean avoiding every person who disagrees with you. Constructive criticism can be valuable, but persistent negativity can slowly erode motivation. Purpose requires environments that encourage growth. Healthy communities celebrate progress, offer honest feedback, and support one another through challenges. They create spaces where individuals feel safe to explore ideas and pursue meaningful work. Mitchell often encourages people to intentionally cultivate these environments. Sometimes this means seeking out communities aligned with your values. It may involve joining organizations, professional networks, creative groups, or faith communities where purpose-driven conversations are encouraged. Relationships also shape character. The people you spend time with influence your habits, attitudes, and priorities. Mitchell often references the idea that individuals gradually become like the people they surround themselves with. If your closest circle values integrity, growth, and service, those qualities begin to shape your own behavior. But if your environment prioritizes comfort, distraction, or negativity, those influences may gradually weaken your commitment to purpose. This is why intentional relationships matter. Mitchell also discusses the importance of accountability. Accountability partners help ensure that purpose remains active rather than theoretical. They ask questions about progress. They remind you of your commitments. They challenge you when you drift away from your goals. Accountability transforms intentions into actions. Without accountability, it is easy to delay difficult tasks or abandon long-term plans. But when someone else is aware of your goals, you become more likely to follow through. Community also protects against isolation. Isolation can distort perception. When people withdraw from meaningful relationships, they may become overwhelmed by internal doubts or unrealistic expectations. Healthy relationships provide grounding. They remind you that challenges are normal. They offer perspectives that help interpret difficulties more accurately. Mitchell also emphasizes the role of service within community. Purpose is rarely self-centered. Most meaningful callings involve contributing to the well-being of others. Community provides a context where that service becomes tangible. Instead of abstract ideas about impact, relationships reveal real human needs. Through interaction with others, you begin to see where your skills and passions can genuinely help people. Community, therefore, becomes both the testing ground and the training ground for purpose. Your ideas are refined through conversation. Your character is shaped through relationships. Your mission gains momentum through collaboration. Mitchell also reminds people that relationships require intentional effort. Strong communities do not happen automatically. They require investment, time, honesty, vulnerability, and commitment. People pursuing purpose must also learn to contribute to the growth of others. Purposeful communities are not built only on receiving support, but also on giving it. Encouraging someone else, sharing knowledge, and offering assistance creates reciprocal strength within the group. In this way, purpose becomes collective. Your success contributes to others. Their success strengthens the mission. Over time, a network of people working toward meaningful goals creates exponential impact. Mitchell often describes this dynamic as multiplication rather than addition. One individual working alone can achieve something meaningful, but a group of aligned individuals can create transformation at a much larger scale. Purpose, therefore, expands through relationships, it spreads through shared vision, it grows through collaborative effort. It becomes sustainable when supported by a community committed to similar values. Perhaps most importantly, community reminds us that purpose is not only about achievement, it is about connection. At the end of life, the most meaningful legacies are rarely measured solely by accomplishments. They are measured by the lives touched, the relationships built, and the communities strengthened. Mitchell's message consistently returns to this idea. Purpose should not elevate individuals above others, it should draw people together around meaningful change. And when people unite around purpose, something powerful begins to happen. Ideas become movements, dreams become realities, and individual callings become collective transformation. Living the legacy when purpose becomes a life that outlives you. What if your purpose was never only about your life, but about the lives that will be changed long after you are gone? As Philip Anthony Mitchell often explains, the ultimate goal of purpose is not simply personal success. Purpose is not about collecting achievements, building fame, or accumulating wealth. While these things may sometimes appear along the journey, they are not the true destination. The deeper goal of purpose is legacy. Legacy is the lasting impact your life leaves on others. It is the influence that continues to shape people, communities, and ideas even after your direct involvement has ended. Many people spend their lives chasing temporary accomplishments. They pursue recognition, comfort, or short-term rewards. But Mitchell encourages people to think in a much larger time frame. Instead of asking, "What can I gain right now?" he invites people to ask a more powerful question: "What will remain after I am gone?" This shift in thinking transforms how someone approaches their purpose. When someone begins to think about legacy, their priorities change. Short-term recognition becomes less important than long-term impact. Personal comfort becomes less important than meaningful contribution. Legacy-driven purpose focuses on transformation rather than attention. Mitchell often explains that some of the most influential people in history did not begin with fame or public recognition. Many simply committed themselves to consistent service, believing deeply in the mission they were pursuing. Over time, their actions created ripple effects. A teacher who invests deeply in students may inspire generations of thinkers, leaders, and creators. A mentor who guides young professionals may shape the direction of entire industries. A community leader who dedicates years to improving a neighborhood may change the trajectory of countless families. Legacy grows quietly. It rarely happens through sudden, dramatic moments. Instead, it develops through thousands of small decisions, daily choices to act with integrity, generosity, and commitment. Mitchell emphasizes that legacy begins with alignment. A person must align their actions with their values. If someone speaks about purpose but lives according to convenience, the message loses credibility. But when someone consistently embodies the values they believe in, their life becomes an example others can follow. This authenticity is powerful. People are drawn to individuals whose actions match their words. Integrity creates trust, and trust allows influence to grow naturally. Another key idea Mitchell shares is that legacy requires long-term thinking. Modern culture often encourages immediate results. Social media rewards quick attention. Businesses chase quarterly profits. Individuals pursue instant gratification. But purpose-oriented living requires patience. Real transformation takes time. Building institutions, shaping communities, mentoring individuals, and creating meaningful change often requires years or even decades of faithful effort. Mitchell often reminds people that the most meaningful work is rarely rushed. Trees that grow quickly tend to have weak roots, but trees that grow slowly develop deep foundations capable of supporting lasting strength. The same principle applies to purpose. When someone commits to steady growth, their influence becomes sustainable. They build systems, relationships, and ideas that continue functioning beyond their direct involvement. Legacy also involves multiplication. Mitchell teaches that purpose should eventually extend beyond individual effort. Instead of doing everything personally, purpose-driven individuals begin empowering others. They train leaders. They share knowledge. They create opportunities for others to step into their own calling. This process multiplies impact. Imagine one person working alone for 20 years. Their contribution may be meaningful, but it remains limited by time and energy. But if that person mentors 10 others who continue the mission, the impact expands dramatically. Multiplication turns purpose into movement. Mitchell often emphasizes that leadership within purpose is not about control, it is about empowerment. True leaders do not hoard influence or knowledge, they distribute it. They prepare others to succeed, even if those people eventually surpass them. This mindset reflects confidence and humility. Confident individuals are not threatened by the growth of others. Instead, they celebrate it because it strengthens the mission. Humility allows people to recognize that purpose is larger than personal recognition. Legacy-driven individuals understand that they may not receive credit for every result their work produces. Some outcomes will appear long after they are gone, but purpose does not require immediate applause. Mitchell also speaks about stewardship. Stewardship is the responsibility of managing the gifts, opportunities, and resources entrusted to you. Every person has certain abilities, skills, knowledge, creativity, relationships, and experiences. Purpose involves using these resources wisely. Rather than wasting talent on trivial pursuits, purposeful individuals invest their abilities into work that benefits others. Stewardship also includes time. Time is the most limited resource any person possesses. Once a moment passes, it cannot be recovered. Mitchell encourages people to evaluate how they spend their time. Are your daily activities moving you closer to your purpose? Or are they slowly distracting you from it? Living with purpose requires intentional choices. Sometimes it means saying no to opportunities that look attractive but do not align with your deeper mission. Other times it means committing to difficult responsibilities because they contribute to meaningful outcomes. Another element of legacy is storytelling. Human beings understand the world through stories. The way people describe their journey influences how others interpret challenges and possibilities. Mitchell often encourages individuals to share their stories honestly, not just the victories, but also the struggles, doubts, and failures. These elements make the story real. When people hear authentic stories of perseverance, they gain hope. They realize that purpose is not reserved for perfect individuals, but for ordinary people willing to grow through difficulty. Stories inspire action. They help others imagine what might be possible within their own lives. In this way, personal stories become seeds of new purpose in others. Mitchell also reminds people that legacy ultimately reflects love. Purposeful lives are often rooted in a genuine desire to improve the lives of others. Whether through teaching, creating, leading, serving, or building, purpose-driven individuals seek to leave the world better than they found it. This motivation transforms how success is defined. Success is no longer measured only by personal advancement. Instead, it is measured by the number of lives uplifted, opportunities created, and communities strengthened. Purpose therefore becomes relational. Your influence spreads through the people you help. It continues through the individuals you mentor. It expands through the systems you build. Over time, these contributions create a legacy far greater than any individual achievement. Mitchell often concludes his teachings about purpose with a simple but powerful idea. Your life is a story being written every day. Each decision becomes a sentence. Each habit becomes a paragraph. Each season becomes a chapter. The question is not whether you will leave a legacy. Everyone does. The real question is what kind of legacy you will leave. Will it be a story of comfort and missed potential? Or will it be a story of courage, growth, service, and impact? Purpose gives life direction. It transforms random moments into meaningful steps. It turns challenges into preparation. It converts talents into contributions. And when someone fully embraces their purpose, their life becomes something extraordinary, not necessarily because of fame or recognition, but because of the difference it makes in the lives of others. That is the ultimate vision Mitchell invites people to pursue. A life aligned with purpose, a life lived with integrity, a life that creates ripples far beyond its own timeline. Because in the end, purpose is not only about discovering who you are meant to be, it is about becoming someone whose influence continues shaping the world long after your story is finished.